All right, so this is the assignment called One Point Perspective. So after you've watched the video with the link that I sent and I posted on your folder, you're going to work directly on to your Bristol board paper. Now, it is a really good idea to actually work on the same assignment or the same exercise that the video was showing, which was to kind of make sure that you understand the concept of cubes and how cubes move in space. Those of you who are pursuing animation, I think it's a really great idea to master cubes in space and how to kind of turn them around. And you can do that in your sketchbook. But for design one, this is the assignment. So the idea for you is to create 4 equally distanced windows into your 14 by 17 Bristol paper. Each of these windows needs to measure 6.5 by 8 inches long. And one way that you can do this is by leaving 1/3 of an inch in each of these spaces. And that actually is going to give you an even distribution of the windows. The next paper, right, it's going to be your second task. So just leave a 1/2 inch border all around it, and that's going to give you an exact measurement for the second half of the assignment, or the second task, which is working on a 13 by 16 rectangle. Okay, but let's focus on the first task because it's the most important one. So again, I just created this one. Apologies, there's a couple of smudges here. I'd like for your work to be very clean, but I've been working, creating videos here, and I have a couple of smudges there that let's pretend that they're not there. So with that said, the first window you're going to be working, making a, well, first of all, I'd like for you guys to add horizon lines at different places into each of the rectangles. Think of each of these as a window. So I created already a 3-inch side square, and I mark here my horizon line. So very simple, you're just going to drag or create orthogonals that are going to converge into our horizon line, and into each of the vertices of your square shape are going to converge onto the horizon line. Okay, so very simple. And then of course we need to create the 3 dimensions by unifying, creating the parallels. Here. Again, try working with an H pencil. I'm working with a 2B here because I want to add contrast to this drawing here so you guys can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, so now I have a completely sort of empty, if you will, rectangular prism, or a cube, I should say. So you're going to be using your marker, your micron marker, or you can also use the fine tip point of the Sharpie, and all you're going to outline is the outer edge. Everything else is going to be left in pencil. Again, make sure that you're making your work as clean as possible, so that it will photograph well. A little bit difficult for me to work on this edge without really leaning, but I don't want to block even more your view. So with this, I'm sure you guys get the idea. If you're working with your rulers, make sure to actually clean the edges each time that you use it. Okay, and then you have your very nice cube in your first window. So the second window, you're going to be utilizing a triangle. And in this case, the first one was a 3x3 square, all right? And then the second one, you're going to create a triangle with 3-inch sides, and then also a hexagon and a 5-pointed star. So let's start working on the triangle. And again, I'm going to utilize my pencil, and it's going to be a rather large triangle. Let me just place these rulers here to the side. And in fact, I think it'll be easier if I use this little ruler I have here. There's no need to be as specific I'm trying to get as close as possible to a 3-inch triangle. Okay, and then again, the vanishing point should be placed at a different point. And again, my horizon line, it's a little bit above. And now I'm going to create the illusion of space by having all of the orthogonals here meeting into. Okay, and then I'm actually going to add here my base. Okay. So again, we're going to be working with a micron, and I'm just going to show the visible lines. Of the now three-dimensional, if you will, for, again, this is just an illusion shape. Just going over twice to show you guys, and I think it's going to show a little bit better in contrast. Okay, so there, now we have, instead of a triangle, we have a pyramid. Now we're going to be working on the hexagon. The hexagon, it's a little bit tricky, and again, the hexagon has to be 1 inch. Let's see if, let me work here on my hexagon. Oh, I was going to work with my micro. Let's place this away. And I want you guys to remember that to work on a hexagon, the hexagons are rather interesting because they have an angle of 120 on their internal angles. So very simple. I have 1 inch here. So it's a good idea to use a protractor. This is going to save your life big time. So again, when you're working with a hexagon, all interior angles are 120. So I'm just marking here 120. And I can go in with my ruler or mark 1 inch. And then, again, this is my center. I'm going to line it up with an edge, mark 120, grab my ruler, and line it up here, again 120, gonna do it all around, and that's what's going to give me the appropriate inclination for a hexagon. Okay, I'm just being careful that I'm mindful, and then this should be about, yep, perfect. It should be 1 inch. Okay, so all of my markings, I can actually get rid of them. And now I'm going to place my vanishing point right here, and I'm going to create the illusion of 3 dimensions by where the angle fell. I'm just going to use it in order to remember each of these sides need to reflect, and of course, because things recede as they move into space, so to speak, they're actually going to be much smaller. And then of course now utilize your ruler and your micron or your Sharpie on the fine side in order to outline the visible shape. And you can leave the rest, the pencil, just as is. I love microns. They're just so nice and precise. And they help just create a really crisp edge. Pardon me if I'm working a little bit fast here because I don't want to take that much of your time. Okay? So now we have our cube, we have our pyramid here, and now we have here our hexagon and or prism, and now we're going to work on a 5-pointed star. So there's a couple of ways to work on a 5-pointed star. One way is to actually draw a pentagram, and a good idea is to work with, and again, it's all about the angle. So I highly suggest that you utilize a protractor. I hope you have one at home, and if not, I suggest that you go buy one. So let's see, my instructions say a 5-pointed star. It doesn't really tell me, I'm not saying, let's see, hexagons with 1-inch sides and a 5-pointed star. So I'm actually going to create a 2-inch hexagon. And again, I'm about to work on a micron, but no, I really want to use my pencil. And again, let me just remind you, work with a pencil that it's much firmer, so a 2H would be ideal. So when we're working on a pentagram, so there's 2 ways that you can do it. I'll just show you guys the easiest one. So I just created a 2-inch side, and from here I'm going to measure 2 angles. Basically, I'm just measuring the internal angles. So the one on the left hand side, it's going to measure at 72, and then on the other side it's going to measure at 108. And that should give us the correct inclination. And of course I'm using 2 inches. Okay, and again, this is for my 5-point star. And then now, well, there's 2 ways that you can do it. If you have a compass, actually this is going to make your life a little bit easier. If not, you can do it with your ruler and just measure with your ruler sort of where the 2-inch mark falls. And that should measure exactly at 2 inches, like we're seeing here. We're kind of reliving geometry here. Okay, so I have a pentagram here, or 5 points, and now I'm going to unify the internal angles in order to create my 5-point star. So it's very simple. So if you start on one side, just jump and let's connect two of the angles. And again, I'm going to connect not with the next one, but actually I'm just jumping one. Okay. And then I'm following here. Again, I'm going to jump this angle here and connect to the following one. And that's how we can actually achieve a 5-point star. Very simple. The 5-pointed star is perfect to start with a pentagram. That's going to be my vanishing point. Now I might have to use a slightly larger, longer ruler. Okay, so I can connect all of my vertices here. Okay. And this one, I'm going to leave alone. All right. So, oh, well, no, I should not leave it alone. Let me just mark it very ever so lightly here. Okay. So, the next thing we need to do is we need to now connect the edges of the star so that by creating these sides that are, and we can create the illusion of 3-dimensional shape. And again, the sides of the star are just going to mirror barely see it here. Oh, it's a little bit, okay. We don't really need this edge here, that's okay. So now I'm going to go over with my micron pen in order to create the star per se. Okay, let me start here. Only the visible edges of the star. And again, I'm deliberately going over some of these sides twice in order to add contrast and show you guys how slowly but surely the star becomes much more apparent. I know there's some loss of quality when you're doing a video, so just bear with me for a moment. And it depends on where your vanishing point is located. Sometimes some of the sides you're not going to be able to see because they're sort of behind the three-dimensional object. Okay. Oh, I'm missing one. So for example, if I were to erase my pentagram, which was rather strong, of course you don't have to do this. You can see how our star, it's a little bit more visibly. Okay. And there you have it. It's a receding star right there. All right, guys, for the second task, so you're going to be working a large piece of paper. So now you're going to be working by adding or creating 7 different shapes. You have to locate your horizon line at just one point, and all you have to do is just create different shapes. You could do a cylinder, you could do any kind of a prism, you could do a pyramid, you could even maybe try another geometric shape that I haven't spoken about today. And again, you're going to use the lines of convergence to recede into one, or converge into one horizon line. Okay, so if you have your horizon line, I'm going to use a longer ruler here. You can have a 5-point star, you can have an octagon. I mean, it's completely up to you. So then you get to decide where to place the vanishing point. You're going to have 7 different shapes of different sides. And again, one vanishing point. And then you're going to use your Sharpie or your micron pen, and you're going to go only over the visible edges of each of the objects, okay? So that it's going to appear as if the objects are actually floating in space. So you're going to erase all of the pencil converging lines or orthogonals, okay? So I hope I've answered your questions, and make sure if you have any to send me a email to mlefeld@dccd.edu. I'll be happy to go over with you on these assignments, okay? Thank you, guys.